Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. If I seem a little delirious, don't worry, I'm not on anything. I don't do that kind of stuff and never have. Not been feeling too good the last few days. Been a little under the weather, nothing bad, don't worry about it. Maybe a little prayer wouldn't hurt. That never does. But just a little under the weather, and the last 2 nights, kind of because of it, I've gotten about 2 hours of sleep each night. So I'm running on the last little bits of steam that I have left in me. And hopefully when I get done with this video right here, I'm gonna go kind of take a little break and rest for the rest of the afternoon. I normally would put out a podcast today for those of you that listen to it, but because of so much stuff going on, and I mean a lot, I wasn't able to put it all together and finish it today, so it will be out tomorrow. If you're not listening to these, I would encourage you to. It's very different. It's a long format audio podcast. It's not, you don't have to pay to listen to it. Any kind of podcast platforms out there, pretty much, you can listen to it, the Prepared Homestead podcast. But it's growing and getting some good things going on. And I actually was on the phone today with a really good friend of mine he's just an amazing person. And he does a lot of work here in the state and works with groups, patriot type groups across the country. And here in the next, we haven't set a date, but here in the next week or two, he's going to join me on one of the podcasts. And it's going to be a very interesting one. He has been working on some stuff that all of these other independent, patriotic, right-leaning reporters and stuff, it's not even on any of their radars. Apparently, no one's talking about it, but it's some pretty serious stuff, and we're going to probably break that news on our podcast. So I encourage you to do that because I've been so busy, and this video here is different. This is just me talking from in here because I've been so busy. I haven't really had the chance to really put together what to talk about. But I thought I'd just talk from the heart. Part of my busyness is just getting things ready, not necessarily just on our end. When I'm saying our, I mean my family's end. We've been living like this for a long time and been preppers for years. And so we've got a pretty good grasp of what we're doing. We're not master experts, but we got a pretty good grasp, and there's always areas that we can improve upon, and I try to do that as often as I can. But there's so much work being done in the area with our community, and then in other areas across the country behind the scenes, things that they're not highly secretive stuff, but just don't talk about it because it's people's personal business. But a lot of stuff's going on in many, many good ways of people that are doing good things, whether it's their own personal preparations, whether it's coming together as groups of people, or things that they're trying to do proactively to kind of slow some of this stuff down and bring strength, not just in our communities, but in various states. A lot of good things. And so I've been involved in a lot of that over the last really few weeks, but several days now. It's been a lot. And so it's taken a lot of my time, and it's tiresome, but it's also energetic at the same time. And really the part that comes from the heart today to talk to you is just that there's a lot of people that believe that things we're getting there. We're getting close to getting there. And what I mean is, you know what I mean, but the bad stuff, the kind of falling off the edge kind of stuff. I've talked to several people and I've said this and they've responded back. And I mean, I think if we were to say we have probably maybe 12 months, that's being really overly generous. I'd say we have a lot less time than that. There's too many irons in the fire right now of things that are just glowing and heating up and that could just blow the lid off of everything. And then of course, all of this looking at that's happening and then comparing it to an election that's going to be coming up in a year or so, and knowing that they're going to probably do everything they can to disrupt things or not even have it. So we know that the time is getting short. Now, I'm not saying getting short to where we kind of the end of all things happen, that final death blow, I guess, so to speak. But I'd say we're months away at best from things starting to get really, really chaotic. And a lot of people are feeling that. The communications that I'm getting from people, and this is part of, I think, the personal stress with me. I have a desire. I want to be able to, virtually every email that gets sent to me, every text message, every phone call, every communication that gets sent to me, I want to be able to read it and respond properly. And unfortunately, I'm one person, and it's just too many. I mean, a lot of YouTube channels that start to get big, they have staff that they can do that, or some of them, they say, well, if you want a response, you have to pay a certain monthly fee for membership, and then you get a response. I just try to do it for everyone. I think that I don't believe I should charge for that kind of time. The negative side is I can't get to everyone, and I wish I could, because the amount of people out there that I believe are just genuinely good people, and they're really trying to figure it out, and they have good questions, and they're trying to figure out how to make it work, whether it's in their own personal life, their family, relationships around them, and then also, very importantly, building, finding, and making community work, making things happen on their local level so that they're building that tribe so that when things really start to fall apart, they've got something there for, as a group of people, to lean back on. What we're seeing happen in a conversation I had today, one of many actually. My wife, she's like, my goodness. I was on the phone with multiple different people and multiple different calls for almost 5 hours solid today. Very important conference calls and very important things. But one of the calls, this guy that's a friend of mine, and we were discussing things, he said, they're tearing families apart. Everything from the transgender stuff, and pride stuff, and all this other, look at what they did during the lockdowns of pulling people apart. You couldn't go to grandkids' birthday parties. We were seeing these grandma and grandpas having to hug their grandkids behind plastic. It just absolute absurdity. Couldn't go to nursing homes. If someone had to go to the hospital, family couldn't be. Even the husband of a pregnant, birthing, wife, he couldn't even be in there. It was just absurdity, things that we saw happening. And there's worse than that. Okay. Oh, that was a leaf. It wasn't a bug. We're watching these policies rip families apart, and I believe that is very key to their agenda. It's very central to their agenda. It may not be the most important thing, but it's definitely got to be in that top 3 kind of focuses of doing, because number one, family, from a biblical perspective, from a perspective of Father God's Word and the creation that He has planned out, family is got to be one of the most important things. After the planet and the universe and man, He created a family, man and woman. And throughout Scripture, the family is so important. It's so important to civilizations. I mean, any civilization at its very simplest level, it's a family. You can't have a successful, healthy, prosperous civilization, prosperous nation, prosperous state, prosperous community, if you don't have enough stable, healthy, prosperous families. And I don't care if you want to disagree with that, that's fine. But I'm telling you, that family unit is so important to everything. And we're watching so many of these policies just rip that apart. I mean, just something as simple as not being able to purchase homes anymore, or making it so expensive that, you got to move back in with your parents and be single, or take on multiple roommates, and all of these things that in the end, they're hurting families. And I saw a number the other day, and I don't know how accurate it is because it's a projection, but by the year 2030, whoever put this together is projecting that BlackRock alone is going to own about 40% of the private, personal property in the United States, private real estate property. They'll own about 40% of it by the year 2030. That's just one. I mean, they're the big one. That's just them. What are the next 10 combined going to own? This you'll own nothing. Well, there's a reason for that. That's why they're doing all this stuff, and you're seeing that housing and interest prices and debt and the dollar value and everything's just exploding to the point that you can't even purchase it. I saw another number, and this was for Canada, that the top 10% in wealth, the top 10% earners in Canada, if you were at the 10%, that's the number. If you're number 10% in that wealth bracket, that you still don't have enough on average to purchase an average home now in Canada. That you need to be above that. You need to be in the less than top 10%, so the top 8% is where it works out to be, to actually make enough money to purchase a home in most places in Canada. That's crazy. And it's not just a coincidence that it's happening. This stuff that we're watching, it's not just because they want to win an election, okay? If that's what you think everything is about, then your focus is way too narrow. You got to broaden your scope, man, because it's not just about who wins the next election or what political party is in power, because both are controlled, okay? They're just two sides of the same coin, different wings of the same bird. It's way bigger than that, folks. It's about absolute total control of you, your mind, your body, your insides, your soul, right down to the very molecular level. That's what they want to control. And they want to control everything that's in your world, because it's evil. It's an evil plan. And one of the key things that's in that evil plan is to destroy families. We're watching that. We're watching that happen. We're watching it difficult for families to stay together. We're watching them pull apart. We're seeing things that's been talked about in the Bible for millennia now, of how in those last days that we're going to see families turn against each other, and children against their parents, and brothers against a brother, and all this kind of stuff. We're seeing it happen. And I believe it's all part of it. So a lot of the stuff that we may not recognize immediately as preppers, as homesteaders, as self-sufficient people, as trying to build a tribe and stuff, really in the end it's about retaining that very special unit of the family, something that I believe in my heart that God himself, he ordained that. It's why it's so special. It's why it's talked about so much, and so many references to it, and analogies to husbands and wives and marriages and families and children and all that kind of stuff, because it's that important. We're watching this being destroyed right before our eyes. That's why it's so important that we do what we do. It's why it's so important that we're not just preppers, we're not just putting stuff back, but we're trying to build something outside of this, because we know this. I think most of you, at least at this point, have a pretty good idea that what's happening it's not just a little hiccup, it's not a speed bump in the road of life. We're watching the very structure that's been developed as our civilization for centuries, going way beyond the history of the United States. We're watching that be destroyed. We're watching a biblical worldview centric civilization, which has been around for a very, very long time, be taken down little by little so that it can be a self-centered, and which in other words is very satanically centered worldview. That's really what we're seeing happen, and we have to be aware of that. And so trying to build tribal type mentality and communities and just alternatives to that, everything from how you're going to communicate and how you're going to treat medical issues, when they tell you, oh, you don't have the thing and you don't have the proper digital, identification, well, I guess you can't come in the doors. And I know some of you are going to roll your eyes at that. Like, you're telling me that it may get to the point that if I have to go to the ER and I don't have the proper papers, they're going to turn me away. Do you realize up until recently it was still being a common practice over the last 3 years to deny people medical access just because they didn't have that? People couldn't get transplants, organ transplants that they desperately needed. They couldn't get it. People were refused surgeries because they didn't have it. People were refused medical treatment. It wasn't maybe widespread, but it certainly was happening. If you think that it's not going to happen any worse than that, I think that you're pretty blinded. At some point, it is going to happen on a wide scale, and it may be in your area too. And so what are you going to do about that? What's your plan? Well, that's where a community comes into play, and there's all kinds of possibilities of how to build a system outside of that. Something that it may not be perfect, it may not take care of every need, but it can certainly take care of a lot of needs, and we have to work towards that. There's many other things that we can be doing, and we got to be serious about it. We have to be, yes, I'm down here if you're listening. We have to be serious about this stuff, folks. We have to pay attention and realize that what is going on isn't just so that they can make some more money. It's not just so that they can take your home. It's not just so that they can solidify their power in the political world. It's so that they can have absolute control over you and destroy all the things that for a very long time we have come to know as absolute truths. Those people that we refer to as they're the ones that want to be looked to as the saviors and as the gods and as the leaders and as the creators. It's not me making that up. They say this themselves. You read their literature, their writings, watch their videos, listen to their speeches. They say this thing. They've actually said things that, eventually, we won't need any God anymore because we ourselves will be gods. If you don't believe me, look up the guy Yuval Noah Harari or whatever his name is. He's flat out says it. He's a personal advisor, has been to Barack Obama, and is currently the personal advisor to Klaus Schwab. Yeah, he says it. This sounds so far-fetched, but it is actually true. And so the things that you and I are doing, that many of you are striving so hard and you're putting so much effort into, it's not crazy. It's not some futile, ridiculous thing that we're doing. We're trying to retain the very precious things that are left to us while we're still left here on this planet. Someday we won't be, but while we're still here, we have to create something to protect those things that we hold so dear. And really what that is for most of us, it's our family. We want to create something so that, if this lasts long enough that I may not be here, that at least my children have something to hold on to. They're able to learn truth. They're able to possibly, maybe, have a place that they can avoid all of this. So the stuff that we're doing, it's so important. It's not just a cool little prepper thing. It's not just going out and LARPing and playing G.I. Joe. It's not, trying to see who can build the coolest vehicle or who can have the coolest gear. I mean, it can be those things in the moment, but we all should know that that's not what it is. What it really is we're trying to build something that's very special so that it can protect the things that are most important to us, because that's what they're after. That's what they're after. They're after not just your freedom or your vote or your compliance and obedience. They're really after the family. They're after the innocent ones. That's what they've been doing in public education with their indoctrination for decades now, to the point that you're just an absolute fool if you send your children to these indoctrination camps. It's grotesque, the things that are being sent and talked about. I talked to a local school board president just the other day, a very, very conservative, old-fashioned. He's the school board president of one of the local school districts, and he said that during the month of June, or leading up to the month of June, that on the federal level, the Department of Education was just bombarding them and other school districts with all kinds of wonderful grants and money and benefits. We'll put all new computer systems in. We'll pay for extra teachers, for all this kind of stuff, if you celebrate Pride Month in this way. Yeah, they're trying to buy them out. And he said that so many school districts are doing it because, boy, they like to flash the money around. This is the kind of stuff they're doing. And it's far worse than even that. They're after you and your family and those little ones that you love so much. Because if they do, then their job is so much easier. They want to eliminate us archaic people that actually believe in God and believe in traditional values and believe in freedom and recognize that these evil demonic beings have no power over us. They want to eliminate us, and they're doing everything that they can. Folks, you know as well as I do, at least most of you do, that this that's going on is way bigger than anything the news is talking about. It's way bigger than anything the alternative news is talking about. It's very much a spiritual war, and it's a war for you, your loved ones, and right down to the very spark of life that was given to you by the Almighty Creator. It's that serious, and we need to be taking it serious, and we need to be getting our houses in order and preparing ourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.